Should we use credit cards for everyday spending and everyday expenses, or are they a trap? Should we stay away from them at all costs? That's the question today. First thoughts.
First thoughts are, what I do is I do use credit cards for everyday purchases. So I'm going to be an advocate for using credit cards because it's on stuff you're going to buy anyways. At least that's, by and large what I spend money on. Do I spend money on things I don't need to impress people that I don't like? Yes. I mean, I think we're human, we're emotional. We all fall into that trap to some extent. That said, by and large, I don't ever use a debit card. So yeah, I mean, from very, 30,000 feet here, that's what I do.
Don't tell Dave Ramsey.
I'm not going to tell Dave Ramsey. Maybe one day I'll tell Dave Ramsey.
I'm in the same boat though. And as somebody who, at some point was what I would have considered a Dave Ramsey disciple, I even called into the show,
No way. Did you really? Tell me about that.
I did.
Did you get on?
I did. I was on the show. It was a very short call. I was 18. I was knee deep into, Dave Ramsey. Talked to him for, probably 30 seconds. I had asked him about paying for college because I was I didn't have any money for college and was cash flow versus student loans, that kind of thing. So it was cool experience. But I'm Dave Ramsey-ish today.
That's a good way of putting it.
Create credit cards for everything. I do not put anything on a debit card ever. My debit card, the only reason it's in my wallet is so that if I have to go to an ATM, I can get cash out. But it has not been swiped in probably 5 years anywhere. Doesn't get swiped, doesn't get used. The only exception is the rare things that you can't use credit cards for, like paying your rent or, dude,
Dave Ramsey would cringe if I said this, but he would cringe if he heard me say this, which maybe he probably never will. The point is I fantasize one day about being able to just pay my mortgage with a credit card so I can get points on it.
I dream. I wish. So that begs the first question under this kind of topic. Are credit card rewards, which is why we use credit cards, right? Among a couple other reasons. I mean, there's the security factor, overdraft fees, that sort of stuff you can avoid. But are credit card rewards really free money, or are they just a clever way for banks to keep people in debt?
Yeah, it's a good question. Kind of what I'm thinking is, I mean, at the end of the day, the banks win. Let's just be real and get that out on the table. It almost seems to me a little bit like a casino, and don't take that out of context or anything. But what I mean by that is, you go to the casino and, if you're a disciplined individual and you say, hey, I have $100 to spend at the casino, and you literally just stick to that $100, hey, maybe you come out ahead, maybe you go down, but the point is the casino is structured and built in such a way that they're going to win. I think again, I hesitate to say this, but I think it's kind of similar with credit cards and banks in that they're designed to win, So I understand the very real difficulty of only using debit cards, which I'm not an advocate for at all. But, for the course of history, it says that banks win because for whatever reason, people can't keep their spending under control. I'm different, right? And this is why our whole thing is hey, financial success has very much less to do with income and has so much more to do with the emotional side, which I think Dave Ramsey would advocate for as well.
That's my issue with this question is that we're passing the blame for being in debt onto banks and credit card companies who are offering, limits, and we're excusing ourselves. Nobody keeps you in debt other than yourself.
Right.
Nobody makes you go into debt other than yourself. It doesn't matter what kind of offer the banks and credit cards have. It would be worthless for them to offer any of it if there were no humans that did it. It's on us. It's on us to take accountability and responsibility for our actions in our finances. And so like, that's my take on it. Yes. Is it a system that they have built in response to people's poor mindsets and people's terrible life decisions? Sure. We can't fault them for that, though. It's a business opportunity for them to make money. And if you're going to give them money, they're going to take it. Stop being a weak-minded human who can't control your money, and they won't keep you in debt. I don't know. That's my...
Dude, no, that is 100% spot on. Everything you just said was 100% spot on, and Dave Ramsey needs to invite us to his show right now so we can debate him on credit cards. Although, again, he would agree with us on saying that, financial success has more to do with emotions than it does your actual income and dollar amount that you're bringing in, which is what the banks know. The banks know that, and therefore they're going to offer you credit cards, and they're going to offer you credit limit increases. I mean, they continually do that, right? Because they know human psychology. That's really what it comes down to. The banks know human psychology.
And this is my issue with the topic. This is not supposed to be a rip on Dave Ramsey podcast or anything. But this is one of the most common topics that they talk about on, in his world. I'll say this from the beginning. If somebody from the Dave Ramsey show, George, Jade, Rachel, Dave, for some crazy reason ends up watching this podcast, which they never will, but just know that I actually deeply respect and love all of them. Like, love
both too.
Absolutely doing. However, the thing that I can't stand the most about the conversation they have about credit cards is they play the moral high ground game. And they, in response to people who say, oh, we can just game the system, they play the game of like, oh, well, you're okay for your free flight and your free hotel to come off the backs of the single mom who, can't afford to make her rent payment. If that's cool for you and you're morally okay with that, then okay. And I just want to be like, shut up, Dave. Your shirt came from a kid in China that, like, in a sweatshop. Like, if you're going to make that argument for credit card companies, then you need to make that argument for everybody else. You know what I mean?
100%.
And so that's kind of my take on it. I don't want to play a moral high ground. Like, nobody keeps anybody in debt except for themselves.
Right.
Do you think that people who avoid credit cards completely are missing out on opportunities, or are they the smart ones for staying out of debt?
I mean, strictly from, again, I'm speaking out of my own experience here, but strictly from a dollars and cents perspective, I mean, like, dude, like, I probably got $700 back, which in the grand scheme of things is like really not, groundbreaking money or anything like that. But literally over the course of a year, I get an extra $700. Like, that's whatever it is, $50 or $60 a month extra that, can pay for any of the subscription services that you offer that you may not need, but other things, and so I'm like, I mean, I'm the one coming out ahead here, and again, I'm very disciplined, I'm very regimented about, and I'm pretty frugally minded in that I just don't spend a lot of extra money on things that I don't need or don't find value in, and I like to think I'm a pretty hard sell on most things. Now, there are certain things I'll splurge on just like everybody else, but the point is I'm like, I'm spending them on groceries. Like, I have to eat, I'm spending them on bills. I have to pay the bills, So it's things like that.
I think the important point is that, like, whether you do or whether you don't use credit cards, like if we ran a test over the next 30 years, I used a credit card and you didn't, I'm not going to be significantly more wealthy because I chose to use a credit card than if you didn't, we're talking about minuscule differences, but like, for those of us that do love the game of it, there's a lot of value. $700 isn't nothing. And we don't go the cash back route. We go the hotel points route. So we're on the like Hilton American Express route. Yeah. And so we have in our 3 years of marriage traveled every year, either for free or for a large percentage, like, discount, even to the point like where we're traveling internationally this summer and spending about 50% less than we would on a 14-day international trip, simply because of like making purchases that we're already making every day. For us, that makes a big difference. And so like, I would say you are missing out on opportunities by not using credit cards, but I wouldn't go so far as like to say that it's like life-changing opportunity.
Right.
You know,
dude. And however, it could be, again, I wouldn't say life-changing because, you know, it's 2% or 1% or 3% or whatever the percent is, you know. So like you said, it's nothing groundbreaking or anything like that. However, if you're somebody who, for example, might own their own business and you are spending, you know, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 on a monthly basis and you're dumping that on a credit card, dude, I mean, that actually could be some good money.
If you're a small business owner and you're not using a credit card, you're just dumb.
Yes.
I mean,
there's some like, great incentives for small business owners and credit cards.
Or large business owners too. I mean, corporate stuff even. Like there's a reason they use credit cards because you're putting hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. You know, I've got a buddy that is a small business owner and spends $10,000 on a month that he would spend already on a capital card, and that does make a huge difference. So yeah, if you're a business owner, you are missing out on opportunities because it can be a lot. If somebody regularly pays it off, so we're playing that game, right? We're using it and we're paying off the credit card every month. Is there any other like real downside to using credit cards, or is kind of this narrative that like, is it just financial fear mongering that is kind of out there, or are there really any downsides?
I mean, I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here. Again, everybody already knows where I stand on it because I'm like, I use credit cards. Why not? Kind of thing is my whole question. The only real downside that I could see, which I think our buddy Dave would advocate for, is that, well, with a credit card, you're spending more money than you would if you did not have a credit card.
Which is BS. I think that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I have to pay the bills either way.
Well, you know? It's like you only do that if you're weak. You only do that if you're undisciplined. Like, and I hate the whole like emotional detachment. Like it's just a piece of plastic swipe. Like that's so dumb too. Like, I don't know where I was going with that, but
yeah, I mean, to me, there's like, when you're buying things that you're already going to end up buying anyways, it's like, what is the downside here, you know? And maybe there's the psychological, emotional side where, you know, you have this credit card, and again, this is totally a foreign vein of thought for me, but some people might have this temptation where, hey, I have a $10,000 credit limit, therefore I have $10,000. And it's like, that's ridiculous.
Well, you're just stupid. You're just dumb.
And then you're just stupid. Right, exactly. So that's never been a temptation. Like I've never gone to the limit on my credit cards, not a single time, and I've never not paid off my credit card in full ever. I always pay it off in full every single month without fail. Never. And I'm 33 now, you know, and I've had credit cards since I was 18 or whatever, you know.
Same.
And so it's like, so it's like, to me, there's no real downside to it.
Maybe if you're a weak-minded individual that has no control.
Maybe if you're a weak-minded individual that has absolutely no discipline.
Don't be weak. Don't be undisciplined. Like,
yeah.
It's not.
So, do credit card companies? And I kind of hit on this a little bit in the very beginning, but do you think credit card companies like intentionally make it easier for people to slip into debt, knowing that they may make money off interest and fees? Talk about
100%. I mean, you can see it all in their advertising. We all get like credit card junk in the mail, like advertising
constantly
higher credit limits or a new credit card. Like their goal is to get you into debt to pay interest. And so, yes, like they're built to win, just like you said earlier. But like, if we're just going to blame the system, like,
yes,
we're just being a professional victim and taking no responsibility. Like the credit card companies, if you really care that much, like they wouldn't even exist if there weren't people that were, if every single person that had a credit card was just disciplined, lived by a budget, and spend
and did what you and I do.
Yeah, and pay off their credit card every month, there would be no credit cards because like they would be
losing money on it.
Exactly.
Which is the same thing kind of with a casino. It's like there would be no casinos if casinos didn't make money, which again, so then that's an interesting thought that banks and credit card companies are less in the, almost, I don't want to say less, but they're equally in the financial industry as much as they are in like the human psychology industry
100%.
and just knowing people and knowing how people function. Again, I'm not immune to it either. You're not immune to it either. We all have emotions. We all make mistakes. We all, do things we shouldn't and mess up on things. But again, it's like, how disciplined are you?
I'm just tired of the narrative that like the banks are the bad guys. They're the, like, sure, do they do some shady things and questionable practices? Yes, but none of it would even happen if we were just disciplined. Like, stop blaming everybody but yourself.
Yeah. It's like, I use credit cards. I'm going to continue to use credit cards. And we only have like 2, that we actually use. I have a handful of others because, dude, I don't know. I remember I opened, that's what it was. Yeah. So I literally opened like a Southwest credit card just so I could get I think it was like some 30,000 or 60,000 miles or something. And it immediately paid for, our flight to, I can't even remember where we were going, or it took off like some $1,000 or something crazy like that. And then I'm like, I've never touched a credit card again, and I closed the account. So I'm like, who came out ahead here? Josh or
that's right,
credit card company?
So do you think that along the same lines, that last question, like, are the points and the cash back, like, is it just like a psychological trap to get people to spend more than they normally would?
It would seem that way, because again, the banks know what people are going to do, and they offer all these incentives. That's why you get all this junk mail, like you mentioned. You get all this stupid mail. And immediately they go in the trash for me because I'm like, I don't want, if I want a credit card, I'm going to go to like NerdWallet or something and look up the best credit cards that I can get approved for, I'm not going to open it based off of a mail thing I get. But again, they know, like, all their marketing seems to work for whatever reason. And then I don't know, that brings up an interesting point though, too, because like sometimes people's lives, like I remember, oh man, how long ago was this? It was probably like a year and a half, maybe not quite a year and a half ago. Do you know some of that story? But I'm literally looking, and I got 2 kids and a wife, right, who I'm supposed to be supporting and everything. And I looked in our bank account, and I was like, holy crap, I only have like a 2-month runway here until something needs to happen, which is kind of a scary place to be, And I started thinking through the idea of, this isn't forever, but could I or should I or will I need to start putting some of those necessary expenses on a credit card in order to just put food on the table and give us a little bit of, like, that was a thought, like, and praise God that I didn't have to get that far or anything. But like, that was a thought that I was entertaining. And so that's like, then when you start having thoughts of, hey, maybe I should just open another credit card. I know it's 20 whatever % interest to pay on it, but what other option do I have at this point,
So how do you, like, because millions of people have had that same thought and then just subside to, just give it up and fallen into it rather than like take initiative and say, no, I don't want to do that. Like, a lot of people just accept that to be the reality. And I've been kind of harsh, I don't want to be like super insensitive. I understand financial issues, and there are sometimes situations outside of our control. But yeah, like, how do you get from that point of like making the decision to either, when you have that choice in front of you, like, I can either do something about this or I can just fall to credit cards. Like, how do you get
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, I can only speak out of my own experience, and I guess literally what I did is I was like, well, I have to start applying for jobs, and I just started thinking through, like, where am I going to work? Like, we're at at the point that you get to like ground zero, I hate to say rock bottom, because I mean, there were a lot of things that, there's much more to the story than just like we were a couple months out from not having any money in the bank account. So there's of course nuances in the story and everything, but I started thinking through like, well, what I'm currently doing, which I was a loan officer at the time. I don't know if you know the housing industry from a year and a half ago. This would be, kind of middle of 2023 at that point, and even all of 2024 basically too. But it's basically just at a standstill. I mean, literally even just in February of 2025, pending home sales were at their lowest point in history. That's lower than, and so as a loan officer, I only get paid on closing a mortgage, right? And I just like things were just so slow that I started having to think through, do I, put things on a credit card? Do I, which was one of my thoughts and ideas, or do I take another job, or both, some combination of? I literally started thinking through, and this is like a humbling kind of experience, but like asking family, I never, again, Lord, I'm glad I didn't have to. But again, these thoughts when things are at, like a ground zero, again, I wouldn't even say we were at rock bottom. It wasn't that extreme or anything like that. Like we didn't have to move or, give up anything. But, you just start having these kind of thoughts of like, man, should I just, is that a worst case scenario? Is that the worst case where I just put things on a credit card? Again, like I in my position, I started applying for jobs. Got one that worked out really well for me. And I started putting in the work and saying, like, I have to do something different. I can't just keep doing the loan officer thing that's not working. I have to go somewhere else.
You said it. You said it. You said it. You said it. You said, what I've been doing is not working. I've got to do something different. Most people never get to that. They never get to that recognition or willingness to actually act on the fact that they got to change something or do something. And that's why they end up in the pitfall of credit cards. And so from like when people find themselves in that position, the psychological kind of like tactics of credit cards and banks have a big draw, a big pull. I get it. Get it. It's real. So is it irresponsible to like, for us to be, let's even ask this, like, is it irresponsible for us to be sitting here recommending, I mean, they call it credit card hacking, system, whatever. Like, is it irresponsible for us to recommend that to people who may be struggling with budgeting, maybe struggling with self-control?
Okay, I have a story on this. I was actually on my way to a conference, and this was, I don't know, middle of October of last year. So this was like 6 months ago, 5 months ago, whatever. I was on my way to a conference, and I was sitting next to a guy, and he literally started telling me about how he does this credit card hacking thing, where he makes actually a halfway decent amount, and he actually kind of basically like what you do, but with like lots of credit cards. And he opens up these accounts and he travels for free several times a year. And I'm like, dude, that's why. And he starts and I'm like, whoa, this is like way over my head. I'm sure I could learn this if I wanted to, but I also have, other things that I can't devote time to something like this. But it was interesting to hear him talk about it, because I'm like, whoa, you can actually, and then you just, if it's got the annual fee thing, you just close it out, like no big deal, and you just put reminders in your calendars, and you're, to use that word again, disciplined about things. But most people, again, are not disciplined.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, like the credit card hacking thing was interesting, because he actually like opens up several credit card accounts on an annual basis, just so he can travel whenever he wants, and not like literally he doesn't pay for airfare ever.
Yeah. So is it irresponsible to recommend something like that to people who are struggling?
It's creative. I mean, it's certainly creative. Is it irresponsible? I don't know that it's black and white. I don't know that it's irresponsible nor responsible. I wouldn't do it. But I mean, you can certainly come out ahead. It's an interesting, I mean, what do you think?
I don't know. I just think we go back to our kind of like the heart behind why we're having these conversations to begin with, is that like the you're blaming somebody else for your problems. You know, it's kind of my thought about it. Is like, if you struggle with budgeting and self-control, like you need to fix that, not whether or not I'm recommending you use credit cards or not. Like, you need to fix your budgeting and self-control, and then like it doesn't even matter. The question doesn't even matter. So
you're asking the wrong question then at that point.
But the average person struggles with budgeting and self-control, and so that's kind of what we're faced with, you know. And so would that person be better off with a debit card, you know?
I think, well, actually, okay, that's a good question. And here's why I think it's a good question. Because I think Dave Ramsey would say, yes, the average, whatever average means, the average person would be better off using a debit card to control spending. Now, let me qualify that a little bit. And I would maybe say the average person is better if they're in a financial kind of bind or struggle right now. The average person would be better off using a debit card for a season. Like everything else in our lives, discipline can be built like a muscle. So use a debit card for a year, 6 months, whatever it ends up being. Build that discipline muscle, because there is something different, you know, psychologically, like, you know, seeing what is in your bank account versus what is sitting in your bank account and not knowing exactly what your debit card or what your credit card balance is, you know, because really, like, if I have a, you know, $2,000 balance on my credit card, but I have, you know, 10,000 in my account, or really I only have $8,000. And so there is something different on that side of things. But I would say that it's maybe advantageous to, if you are not disciplined with your finances, build that financial discipline by using a debit card for a period of time, whatever it may be, until you have built some financial discipline, and then maybe it is appropriate to delve back into the credit card world. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's wisdom in taking time away from anything to build better discipline. You know, whether like, whatever you want to call it, but like, it must want to be like, you want to fast from a credit card. Silly, but like taking time away to learn how to more appropriately use something. Yeah, like that's a very wise approach. Because I do think anybody can get to the point where using credit cards does work. You have to be disciplined. So we, in these scenarios, would we talk differently at all about like people's circumstances? Like, would we have this conversation differently? Somebody who is a high income earner with high credit versus like the way we would talk to somebody who's like low income, living paycheck to paycheck?
Yeah, that's a good question.
High income people still live paycheck to paycheck all the time because they have poor management. So, but would we have this conversation differently? You know?
I mean, the conversation is always nuanced. I think it's always nuanced because everybody's situation is unique and different. But the message is the same. And like, hey, whether you're making 150,000 a year or you're making 50,000 a year, those two people could have the exact same net worth and living paycheck to paycheck, like you said, which just goes to tell you again to support everything we always say, that finances are less about income and more about behavior and psychology and your discipline. And so, like, I'll rip into somebody if they're buying dumb crap, whether they make 150,000 or 50,000, you know? So, I mean, but at the same time, I'm like, if you're making 150K, you know, I just always think, like, if you're making 150K, like, how are you having a hard time with your finance? How's your net worth not like, I have a higher net worth than people making double what I'm making, triple what I'm making, because it's that lifestyle creep kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
As far as credit cards go, again, it comes down to the behavior around it. Do you feel the freedom to spend more money that you don't actually have? Which again is Dave Ramsey's thing. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it doesn't really matter. I think the behaviors are the behaviors, and those behaviors exist in both levels. And like, I mean, yeah, just kind of repeating what you said, but like, yeah, I think the issues are the same issues regardless of income.
So is, again, Dave Ramsey been preaching this for, gosh, I was in high school, okay, when I was first introduced to Dave Ramsey, which was, 15, 16, 17 years ago or whatever it was. And I like Dave. Like, I kind of like you, Dave-ish. Dave mostly. Well, I might even say that. I'm mostly Dave.
Yeah.
That said, he's been around for forever, and he's helped a lot of people. Frankly, he has helped a lot of people.
I have.
More people than I have. More people than probably both of us combined, which isn't saying much, but the point still stands. So then, is the financial advice of what Dave preaches to never, and he's very black and white on it, to never use a credit card, is that outdated and unrealistic in today's economy? I hesitate to even say today's economy, because it's like economy's always changed, like whatever.
I would not call it outdated or unrealistic, because I don't think there's something wrong with you if you choose to not use credit cards. Like, similarly to like an alcoholic who says, like, I'm going to abstain from alcohol for the rest of my life because I just can't do it. Like, if you choose to abstain from credit cards, I don't think there's something wrong with you. Like, I don't judge people. Like, I don't judge Dave Ramsey's employees for not using credit cards. Who cares whether you do or don't? Right. My issue is more with the exclusivity of his statements, that like never should anybody, that nobody. My argument would be, it's not outdated or unrealistic. It's just too extreme. Like, that people should have the freedom to choose to use them or choose to not, and not feel like there's somebody telling them that they can or can't. Does that resonate?
Yeah. No, I'm there with you. And again, Dave's thing is like, he knows psychology as well as the banks do, and maybe even he would even say this, that he's more in the psychology business than he is in the financial business. It just happens to play out through a financial outlet, I guess, for lack of better terms. And he's just on the opposite end of the credit card companies, and so he has to, because he can't, and it's in this world, you can't take like a middle road, because credit card companies are saying, we know psychology so well, and we know people are going to end up paying interest on this. And Dave is in the same camp, but on the opposite, or not the same camp, he's in the opposite camp, where he's like, I know people, and I know if I say, you can use credit cards, but, watch out for some of these pitfalls and make sure you're responsible about it, make sure you pay it off every month, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on about, good credit card practice. But he can't even say that. He can't even play the middle ground, because the credit card companies are in one and he's in another, and he's trying to draw people away from credit cards. And so he has to be so hard-nosed on it.
We say it almost every week that it's
nuanced.
Well, yeah, we say it's not black and white, it's gray.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. And so obviously our take on lots of financial things, be it credit cards or otherwise, is like, let's talk about the situation and let's cater it to the individual instead of just making black and white statements, which, black and white and being polarized in our world seems to be what gets notoriety, but it's not what's best.
That's right.
Where can people find us?
YouTube. Hopefully you're watching us here, or maybe you're just listening to the audio on Spotify, which is the other place. And then maybe you're watching a clip on TikTok. Or if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify and you've not been to our TikTok, you can follow us there. Also on Instagram and Facebook. But again, I think we said it last week, not as active on those, but we do post. So, go check it out if you want to just see our content everywhere. Keep commenting. We appreciate your feedback. Tell us what you like, what you don't like.
We'll interact and engage with you.
Yeah. Ask questions, or join our Discord server and ask questions as well. We're in there and we're available. So we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Until next time.